Lenovo reporting today a 20% jump in quarterly group revenue for the first quarter. For more, we're bringing in Ryan McCurdy, Lenovo President of North America. Ryan, thanks for being here. So were you guys seeing demand last quarter, and where do you expect that demand to continue?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, it's really across the board, a great start to our fiscal year, and it comes on the heels of a really strong second half of last year. So seeing revenue across the board and profitability is improving across all of our businesses. So you mentioned at the top 20% year over year at the top line. I would point to the 47% of our revenue coming from non-PC revenue. And to answer your question, we really see this meaning that we're simultaneously remaining the #1 PC provider globally, but we're also growing our position in those other major businesses. So services, infrastructure, and mobility. Infrastructure in particular was a record, 65% up revenue-wise, improving profitability. And then services really has been on a tear, 13 consecutive quarters of double-digit revenue growth. You can go to the mobility space. We actually set a record in North America, 12% share of the market. That's a little over 30% of Android. So we really see the business growing across the board. The business that I look after, North America, we've seen 5 straight quarters where we've outpaced the market and gained share. So it's really strong results. I think it's a culmination of a very sound strategy, good execution, and continued investment in innovation.
And speaking of innovation, I'll get back to PCs in a minute because I do want to ask you more about that. But all these other areas that you're talking about, infrastructure and services in particular, how much of that is fueled by AI demand and sort of preparing for the AI training, inference, et cetera, that folks are setting up for?
A lot of it. I think it's twofold. I think there's a large set of installed base across infrastructure and PCs that's aged and needs to refresh. But I think the impetus for refresh is largely driven by wanting modern hardware to drive these AI experiences. We see it in devices. We've launched 2 devices recently with Qualcomm and Microsoft's next-gen OS. One in retail, Slim 7 Yoga. It's the #1 single best-selling SKU in retail. And then in commercial, we have the ThinkPad 14S. Businesses are excited. They're looking at the longer battery life. They're looking at those AI features. It could be the phone space. We just launched the new Razer line in June, and we incorporated Google's Gemini AI functionality into that. So it's kind of being built into all of our products. And in the infrastructure space, I mentioned the great results, 65% up year over year. We have 80+ AI-ready platforms. It's really just built into everything we're doing. We announced last year a $1 billion investment to kind of modernize our infrastructure and bring AI across the portfolio from pocket to cloud.
So bring it back to PCs for me then. Where are we in that PC cycle? And, I think there have been a lot of questions when it comes to, for example, Apple iPhones or even other kinds of smartphones and how much AI was or was not going to fuel that refresh. I think we have the same questions about PCs. So what's your thinking on that and how it might affect the cycle differently than we see in a typical PC cycle?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of investigation, and it matters where you're at in the cycle. I think a lot of large businesses are modernizing now because all of the use cases are coming with the new hardware that you need basically to build these large models. And then you get into the commercial space, and you have customers kind of kicking the tires, trying to see how it fits in their environment. But you have this looming Win 10 end of service. You have this Windows 11 refresh, and every company is kind of figuring out, can I wait a few more months? How do I modernize? And so it's really not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, and we're starting to see that momentum. We had 10 quarters of negative declines in the market until 2 quarters ago. Now we've had 3 straight quarters where we see growth in the market, and I think we're just kind of at the knee of the curve. So I think it'll be a big element of the driver for the next year and decade, but there's an underlying set of products that are aged and need to be refreshed, and that'll drive it as well.
Yeah, the knee of the curve is a good place to be. Ryan, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.